In the annals of history, events often intertwine in ways that baffle and intrigue us. Today, we unravel one such enigma. As our story unfolds, we find ourselves transported back to the early 19th century, a time of great change and unrest. Amidst this tumultuous period, two seemingly unrelated events occurred, one in the heart of Europe, and another in the remote archipelago of Indonesia. In the heartland of Europe, a man named Napoleon Bonaparte was leading his Grande Armée into what would become one of the most significant military campaigns in history. Meanwhile, thousands of miles away, the earth was rumbling, preparing to release its pent-up fury in the form of a volcanic eruption. The connection between these two events may not be apparent at first glance. After all, what could a military campaign in Europe possibly have to do with a volcanic eruption in Indonesia? Yet as we delve deeper, we'll discover a mysterious link, a thread that weaves these two disparate events together in a tapestry of historical intrigue. As we traverse the corridors of history, we'll explore the world as it was during that time, a world on the brink of transformation. We'll examine the life and ambitions of Napoleon Bonaparte, a man whose name has become synonymous with power and conquest. We'll also venture into the tropical paradise of Indonesia, where beneath the serene facade, the earth was stirring, preparing to unleash a force of nature that would reverberate across the globe. In this journey, we'll encounter heroes and villains, triumphs and tragedies, and a series of events that would forever alter the course of history. But at the heart of it all lies a mystery that connects the fate of a man to the fury of nature. As we peel back the layers of time, we find that the roots of Napoleon's defeat lie buried in the ashes of a far-off land. Our tale begins in Indonesia, 1815, where the Tambora volcano erupts, causing havoc and devastation. The Tambora eruption was not just any volcanic outburst, but it was the most powerful eruption in recorded human history. The sheer magnitude of this eruption was unimaginable, comparable only to the force of 1,000 atomic bombs. The immediate effects on Indonesia were catastrophic. Entire villages were wiped out. Forests were obliterated, and rivers of molten lava flowed down the mountain, destroying everything in its path. It's estimated that up to 100,000 lives were lost in the immediate aftermath, a tragedy of epic proportions. But the Tambora eruption's influence didn't stop there. The volcano spewed an immense cloud of ash and sulfuric acid droplets into the atmosphere, so high and so thick that it spread across the globe. This volcanic ash cloud acted like a giant sunshade, blocking sunlight and causing a significant drop in global temperatures. This led to the infamous Year Without a Summer in 1816, a time of widespread crop failures and famine. Imagine, if you will, a world where summer never came. Crops failed, livestock died, and food prices soared. People were cold, hungry, and desperate. Riots broke out and diseases spread like wildfire. This, ladies and gentlemen, was the world in the aftermath of the Tambora eruption. But the effects of this catastrophic event were not confined to the immediate vicinity or even the year it occurred. The eruption's global impact was so significant that it altered weather patterns for years to come, affecting far-off lands and playing a crucial role in historical events half a world away. As the ash from Tambora darkened the skies, a chain reaction began that would ripple across oceans. Little did anyone know then that this eruption would indirectly contribute to the downfall of one of the most powerful men in history, Napoleon Bonaparte. But how? Well, that's a story for the next scene. Stay tuned. 1816, often referred to as the Year Without a Summer, saw the world plunged into an unexpected climate crisis. In the wake of the Tambora eruption, an enormous amount of volcanic ash and aerosols were spewed into the atmosphere. These tiny particles, suspended high above the earth, acted like a colossal sunshade, reducing the amount of sunlight that reached the surface. The result was a sudden and significant drop in global temperatures. This wasn't just a chill in the air, it was a climate shock that shook the world to its core. In the northern hemisphere, summer seemed to have gone on vacation. In New England, snow fell in June. Parts of Europe experienced frost in July. Crops, unprepared for these frigid conditions, failed in droves. Corn turned to mush, wheat refused to ripen. The fields, normally a patchwork of lush, vibrant hues, took on a sickly, pallid complexion. But this wasn't just a problem for farmers. This was a catastrophe that echoed through every level of society. Food shortages swept across the globe, prices soared. In a world where most people lived hand to mouth, the sudden scarcity of food led to widespread famine. From China to Ireland, from North America to Europe, millions faced hunger. And hunger, as we know, breeds unrest. In Switzerland, the cold and crop failures sparked a series of revolts. In England, bread riots broke out. The world was on the brink, teetering on the edge of a precipice it hadn't even known existed. This was more than just a year without a summer. This was a year that tested humanity's resilience. It was a year that showed us how vulnerable we are to the whims of our planet. As crops failed and society struggled, Europe too was thrown into turmoil. Meanwhile, in Europe, Napoleon Bonaparte, a name synonymous with power and conquest, was waging war. The year was 1815, and the French emperor was embarking on what would be his final military campaign, 100 days of conflict that would culminate in the Battle of Waterloo. Napoleon, a masterful strategist, had plans meticulously laid out. However, he hadn't factored in one crucial element: the weather. Little did he know, thousands of miles away in Indonesia, the Tambora volcano had erupted, triggering a global climate crisis. The ash from the eruption spread across the globe, causing a significant drop in temperatures, particularly in Europe. The summer of 1815 became known as the year without a summer. Crops failed, livestock died, and people starved. The climate crisis was not just a problem for the civilian population, it became a severe challenge for Napoleon's Grand Army too. The soldiers, accustomed to the mild European summer, were ill-prepared for the cold, wet weather. Food supplies dwindled, morale sank, and the once formidable army began to crumble under the strain. As Napoleon's forces marched towards Waterloo, they faced torrential rain, turning the battlefield into a muddy quagmire. The French artillery, a cornerstone of Napoleon's warfare strategy, was rendered ineffective in these conditions. The cavalry struggled to maneuver and the infantry found it impossible to maintain formation. This unexpected climate crisis severely hampered Napoleon's strategies and tactics, giving his enemies an advantage. The Battle of Waterloo was a disaster for Napoleon. His army, weakened by hunger and cold, was unable to match the might of the Allied forces. Napoleon's dream of a European empire was shattered and he was forced to abdicate his throne for the second and final time. Napoleon's once invincible army, starved and frozen, met its end, not by the sword, but by a force of nature. The Tambora Eruption had indirectly determined the fate of one of history's most powerful figures, a stark reminder of how nature can influence the course of human events. Thus, a volcano in Indonesia and a military campaign in Europe, seemingly unrelated, were inextricably linked. As we've traveled through this remarkable tale, we've seen the intricate threads of history weave an unexpected narrative. Let's briefly revisit the key points of our story. In the year 1815, Mount Tambora in Indonesia erupted, releasing an unimaginable amount of volcanic ash into the atmosphere. This was not just any eruption but the most powerful in recorded human history. The ash spread across the globe, darkening the skies and cooling the earth, leading to what has come to be known as the year without a summer. Around the same time, halfway across the world, Napoleon Bonaparte was leading his Grande Armée in a campaign against Russia. Napoleon, a military genius, had conquered much of Europe, but this campaign was his ultimate downfall. The unusually cold weather, a direct result of Tambora's eruption, led to harsh conditions and a brutal winter that Napoleon's troops were ill-prepared for. The result was a disastrous retreat and a significant blow to Napoleon's military might. Now, the unusual connection between these two events might seem like a mere coincidence, but it's not. It's a testament to the interconnectedness of our world. The eruption of a volcano in Indonesia had direct consequences on a military campaign in Europe. Tambora's eruption didn't just darken the skies, it altered the course of history. It's fascinating to think that our world, so vast and diverse, is bound by invisible threads of cause and effect. An event in one corner of the globe can reverberate and have profound impacts in another. It's a reminder that we're all part of a larger, interconnected narrative. In the grand tapestry of history, threads intertwine in ways we can scarcely imagine. A volcano's wrath, a general's defeat, a world forever changed.